What is up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Camera Junkie live stream. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, and I want to thank you for taking the time and hanging out here with me. If it is your first time, welcome. Please make sure to introduce yourself into the chat so you can get the nice Camera Junkie crew welcome, so we can all get to know who you are. And if you haven't done so already, I see some of you are getting to it. Please make sure to hit the like button. It's highly appreciated. And yeah, as tradition goes around here, the first thing I do is check the chat to see who of the Camera Junkie crew has made it, who's first. And so let's dive right in. All right, let's see who's here. Parker's in the house saying hello to everyone. All right, this is looking pretty good. No, the size is good. The location, that's a bit better. There we go. How you doing, Parker? We got Gretchen in the house also saying hi to myself and to Aiden. Aiden, it's kind of why I was a minute or two just behind. You understand? Double checking that the prince was okay, that he had everything, make sure that he's fed, taken care of, so that we're good for about the next hour. We also got Paul in here saying what's up to the fam. And everybody's saying hello to each other. This is the best. All right. Says it feels like ages since I've seen Lewis. Very funny. Some of you might not know, but Paul and I are within circles in the backgrounds of Ecamm and YouTube and a whole bunch of other things. So we see quite a lot of each other. But today I'm going to mention my YouTube creator travel kit, or what I'm taking with me to Ecamm's creator camp. Yeah, so I've mentioned this before, but Ecamm is having a first annual, or the inaugural creator camp, and this is not a traditional type of I say get together. This is something completely new where we're there to get to know each other more and also enjoy each other's company, as we're able to, converse and share with each other on our own productions and things like that, but to become better creators, but also mostly to get to know each other in a real life space. So I'm super excited for that. And I, with Aiden, am going to be traveling from Miami to Massachusetts. So my form of travel is by a vehicle. yeah, so I will be driving from Miami all the way up there because I don't have the luxury to have actually tested out flight with Aiden, and there's other limiting factors because things that I have to do as my fatherly duties that happen every 3 hours. I feel it practically impossible I'd be able to do within the restroom of an aircraft. But I digress. So last year, I also had the luxury of going up there and was up there for a month because we also had a like photo shoot, video shoot that we were producing while we were up there. And for that reason, I carried a whole crap ton of gear. Like I brought the just in cases, and there was so much stuff that I had packed up in the vehicle that I felt like I was moving, but with that bit of knowledge, right, I then quickly realized that I wanted to minimize the amount of gear that I was going to carry, what I was going to be taking with me, and knowing that weight is a big part of the issue when I have to, carry around my little prince as well, which he gets heavier and heavier as the days go by. So now, the first thing that I'm going to do is show you my camera bag. Now, the one that I'm going to be taking with me is this Low Pro. This is the BP250 AW3, the fastback, and it's pretty big. And the reason why I'm going to be carrying this one is because the top half, where you could dedicate to a lot more gear and trinkets, I'm basically going to be carrying around Aiden's stuff, like his essentials, so that I don't have to be carrying around two bags. And this entire lower compartment here basically is going to house all of my camera gear and what I'm going to be taking with me to document this event, because even though there's really nothing going to be needed, I know that I'm going to be documenting my entire experience, including the travel to and from. So this is the Low Pro bag that I was so graciously gifted from Ecamm. I looked in their Ecamm merch store and these are no longer available. So I would tell you, like, pick one up, from there. But the bag itself in its entirety is still available. So that's the model number, the BP250 AW3. And I should be better about this. So I'm going to try my best to put the links in the description if you're watching this on the replay. And I really like this bag because it's basically like two bags in one. So I'm able to use the entire top compartment, which is like just standard top loading. It also has a big pouch for a laptop. I was able to carry my 15-inch MacBook Pro, but that was like even the older chassis, right, in this bag without an issue. So if you have one of the bigger MacBook Pros right now, the 14 or the 16-inch, this bag should be able to handle it without any issues as far as the size goes. And yeah, and that's basically it in a nutshell. But what am I going to put in the camera compartment? Let's get to that now. Now, my latest camera purchases have kind of been designed around this trip that I knew that I was going to be taking. The first camera that I picked up new was the Insta360 X3. So this is going to be the camera that I'm going to be using to document a lot of like my travels. So there's features on here where it takes 8K images, and puts them into like a time lapse so that you're getting the highest quality. And I know that there's going to be a lot of hours between, the what is it, the rest areas on the road. And as we travel, I know that I'm going to be making a lot of stops along the way, so I'm going to have a lot of opportunities to be putting this on and off. But I'm going to be documenting a lot of the road trip itself, through this Insta360 Go No, it's not called the Go. The Go is a small one. This is the Insta360 X3, and I've talked about this camera before. 360, so it's got lenses on both sides, and you decide what angle or what shot you get afterwards. So there's going to be a couple of different methods of me recording and applying this to my vehicle as I make the trip up, but we might get into that a little bit later. So this is the first camera that I bought for this, and then the second camera that I bought, which is my most recent purchase, is my A6600. Now, I got this camera, like I mentioned before, because this is the best that we're gonna get with my beloved flip up screen. So once I saw that the A6700, which is the successor to this camera, came out with the side flip screen, I knew that I was gonna pull the trigger on this one, because this is gonna kind of be like the Ferrari, right? The best version of this camera that I can get. So I absolutely love my A6100. I know it wasn't necessary, but I had two of them, so I sold one and got this one, pulled the trigger on it, because I got an amazing deal, and it was just exactly what I wanted. Now that I got it in my hands, I'm so happy with it. This thing is a monster. It is a monster of a camera, and I'm very happy. But now I also want to bring up a backup camera. Now, the backup camera that I was going to carry was probably going to be the A6100, which is what you're seeing right now. It's what I have connected onto my setup. And if I go to this camera here, you can see it's here connected to this whole exact thing right there. Teleprompter, hood, the whole kit bam and caboodle, right? It's there. And last year I actually disconnected everything and, you know, dismantled this entire setup so that I can take it with me to make sure that I had everything, including my full frame camera. This year I decided I am going APS-C, and that's it, because of the size and weight capability, and not so much of the camera body itself, because the A6600 is probably the biggest form factor that you can find in the APS-C line, but the fact that the lenses that I'm going to carry with me are going to really decrease the amount of weight. So before I get into the lenses, let me go ahead and check with you guys. I see some people sneaking in. We got Nano, Tech for Your Needs is in the house. How you doing, Luis? We also got Kevin saying hello. All right. Sly is in the house saying hello to me and to the fellow junkies. Law's made it. It's been a long time, bro. Thanks for stopping by. And you got Mr. Duncan saying hello to everybody. All right. And everybody's saying hello to Mr. Paul as well. All right. So now, lenses, right? Lenses is a big part of the arsenal, and I am a big fan of prime lenses. So there's always a debate, prime versus zooms, and how you're going to utilize them. So I was debating on taking my 24-70, even though it would act differently with the crop multiplication on the A6600 as a zoom lens. But it's a full frame lens, and it tends to be a bit heavier than the rest of kind of the arsenal. So I did want to have like an extreme zoom lens with me, and this was mostly to take photography and documenting as I go, right? So there was a location that I stopped at last time when I was driving, and I think it was in New Hampshire. I digress. It really doesn't matter for the story's sake. But I believe I was, driving through New Hampshire, and as I was doing so, I came to the peak of a mountain, and It was called the American Swiss Alps, right? So it was like America's Swiss Alps, and it was such an amazing landscape. You just saw mountains as far as the eye can see. It was beautiful, and I I had a lot of gear with me, but it was all packed away. So I only was carrying my phone with me to take some of, these shots. So I'm going to be, better prepared this time. But that's why I said that I'm going to be carrying a lot less so that I can get to it a lot easier. Something that can sit with me in the front seat throughout the entirety of the trip. So my compromise for the zoom lens is probably a bit unexpected, but I'm going to be taking with me the 55 to 210. Let me see. I'm going to go with my overhead shot here. This is the kit lens. This is the variable aperture 4.5 to 6.3 55 to 210 zoom lens. So this actively ends up working out to being like a, if my math serves me correctly, it basically runs from like an 85, right? Or we could say 82 millimeter to 300 millimeter, within that range. So all-in-one zoom lens, I'm going with the kit because of its size and portability. Like, this is the biggest lens that I'm going to carry with me. That's it. And it's also the only zoom lens. So for that, I'm understanding the limitations of this lens, and it being not the fastest aperture, so not going to be the greatest in low light, even though I understand that I'm not really going to put this in a low light situation. This is going to be mostly for long photos, and if I need that extra reach that I can't get with the rest of kind of like the arsenal that I'm going to be taking with me. So I'm just going to put that here, and let me see. Let's go with this shot. Okay, I'm just gonna put that there so we can see how much space this is or isn't taking. So that's pretty much it in my bag. A little long, but it fits within it without an issue. So now, next one is my favorite lens. This is the one that I'm gonna carry with me. Now this is a full frame lens. This is the Zeiss 55 millimeter for the Sony E-mount. This is an f1.8, and hands down, this is the lens that if I could only use one lens for the rest of my life, this would be it. It's a full frame lens. That's why I said if I could only use one lens, and that's the asterisk, not just one camera, but one lens, this would be it, because it's a full frame 55 millimeter. If I want to use it for portraits, I put it on an APS-C camera like my A6600, and then I'm getting 85 millimeter output out of it, which is a great aperture or a great focal length for it. The aperture at 1.8 is plenty fast for a lot of situations, including low light. And even at its most wide open at 1.8, this probably takes the sharpest photos at 1.8 wide open that I've ever used. Like, there's a certain quality to this lens as well, certain warmth that it gives to the shot, and paired with pretty much any of the Sony cameras that I've had, I absolutely love the photos. It's silent autofocusing, so even if I needed to use it for video, it's also very capable. And I'm gonna need some water. So there we go, my 55 millimeter f1.8. Now I'm gonna go down because the rest of the lenses that I have are prime lenses. So this is my first prime lens, and if this is the first time that you're ever hearing, and this is just asterisk because I know I'm dealing with a lot of photography and camera junkies, but just throwing it out there. If you've never heard the difference between that, that's kind of like one of the sacrifices. A zoom lens is usually going to have a much higher or like closed off aperture as its minimum aperture, and prime lenses give you a much better image in low light because they have capabilities to gather more light in that aspect. That's why I prefer primes over zooms, but I also know that certain places you need to use them both. So hopefully that just kind of covers that for the novice if they're listening. Okay, from 55 millimeters, I'm taking the next step down, going a bit wider. And the next lens that I'm going to be carrying with me is my Sigma 30 millimeter f1.4. Now, some of you already know that Sigma has an amazing trio of lenses at 1.4. You're looking at one which is the Sigma 16 millimeter, which gives you a relative 24 millimeter field of view. That is still up to debate because, well, this lens is actually gonna stay here because I'm not gonna carry it with me, and we'll get to that, just touching a little bit on that. And you're saying, why wouldn't you take kind of like your favorite lens when it comes to APS-C? And we'll touch on that. So the next focal length is the 30 millimeter. This is the 1.4 prime, and very small compact lens, lightweight, and great focal length as I trickle them down, getting a bit wider as we go. So this is comparable, the same size and height as my 55 millimeters, so those fit perfectly together to give you kind of like the top view that those two lenses are just going to fit perfectly in the bag together. And now we just have one tall boy. Now from there, going even a bit wider, my next lens is my Pancake 20 millimeter f2.8 prime. So it's a 20 millimeter and a prime lens, but look at how tiny and minuscule. This is kind of like an add-on lens, just to throw it in there because it's better to have it than not to have it. But I actually have a particular use case for this one, which is why it's also being added into this, kit of, my creator camp recording setup. So this lens, they have quite a few of this 2.8 small Pancake. They also have a 16 millimeter, which in all sincerity, I don't think the image that comes off of that 16 millimeter is good. I've mentioned it before. I'll reiterate. The 20 millimeter, this one right here, which gives you a 30 millimeter field of view in full frame equivalency. This one, I will stand by the image that I get off of this lens. This is just, it's almost like night and day compared to the 16 millimeter f2.8. But for that reason, I absolutely love it. Extremely lightweight, super compact. Like, that is like the Pancake of Pancake lenses, and complete autofocus. So this lens is kind of like a no-brainer. So that's coming with me, and also covers the 20 millimeter focal length. And the reason why my Sigma 16 millimeter f1.4 is gonna stay here, so that I don't even have to mess with this entire setup. Not this one, so that I don't have to disconnect any of this, right? And this could just stay here and be ready when I get back from creator camp, is because of my latest purchase, which is something that a lens that I've been looking at for a while and haven't really had a reason to do so until now. I got my new A6600 camera, and I wanted to pair it with a really good lens. The lens that I'm talking about is none other than the rockin' on 12 millimeter f2.E completely autofocus lens. Now, if you've never heard of this lens, well, let me shed a little light. This lens came out, I believe, a couple of years ago. and it was to replace the Rockinon 12 millimeter f2 that was strictly manual. So for a long time on the APS-C, the Rockinon 12 millimeter was a manual only lens. And a couple of years ago, they kind of revamped it and made it into an autofocus lens. The reason why is because I also used to own the 10 to 18 f4 Sony lens, and even though it was like extremely hella wide, I never really liked the entire image and use case out of that lens. So when this lens came out, I was really excited, but never really had the need for it or want that much for this lens because I have the Sigma 16. But when we're talking about size and weight, that's where it really does come into play. So I'm sacrificing a bit of speed when it comes to the aperture, going from f1.4 to an f2, but the size and weight of this little lens makes up for it completely. It is basically half the weight of that Sigma 16 millimeter. So I love my Sigma and I will continue to use it, but I also understand that that's a heavy boy because of the fact that I used it last year on my A6100 because that entire setup was with me. But now that I've actually kind of upgraded and I'm taking a bit of a heavier camera because the A6600 is a heavier setup. It uses the Z-type battery, and it is magnesium alloy body compared to a plastic one in the A6100. So for these reasons, there's a lot of added weight to this setup, and then you throw a cage on top of it, gets it even that much heavier, and then you use the Sigma 16 millimeter lens on it, and it's like, why aren't you using full frame? Because you're really up there when it comes to the weight. And this, on top of it being half of the weight, the smaller size also brings kind of like the center of gravity of the camera itself further back instead of it being front heavy. So when it comes to utilizing it as a vlogging camera or anything like that, it's actually working out really well. The one negative to this lens that I was able to realize is that it is very subjective or very sensitive to flaring, to light flares. And even though it has its lens hood there, it's doing its best, but any side light that this thing catches, and you will see a noticeable washing out of the entire of your image, and that is like all the time. So I highly recommend that if you're looking into something like this, just know that that's something that's going to be part of this, or you're going to be using like an ND filter, which I think I'm going to be utilizing, especially using such a fast aperture as a vlogging type camera. But as of right now, I absolutely love this kit and the way that it's set up together. Like it is like very wide enough for photography, videography, vlogging, the whole thing. I got my flip up screen set up, and as you can see, this is why I prefer the flip up screen, because it is so compact that I'm able to have it within my one hand like this. And the cool part is that with this lens right here, this distance that I'm holding it, where it's like super comfortable and I don't have to stretch out my hand all the way like I did with the Sigma, this is wide enough for vlogging that it gets me in, it's like in the entire shot and then some. So I'm extremely happy so far with it. And I'm also going to touch on the fact that I bought this from KEH, and that was my first experience with purchasing from KEH. And I got to say, it was pretty easy. found it on the website. I got a really good price because even though this lens you can buy it new for just a shade, like just a shade over $300, which is an amazing price. Because if I wanted to buy that 10 to 18, I still think it's being sold for $450. And that is like, that lens came out 2012, so we're talking about a lens that's over 10 years old. Granted, it's still a great lens for those who like that type of imagery, but I much preferred, the kind of more of a rectilinear like look that you're getting out of this dedicated 12 millimeter. Because whenever I used, because that's let me get the words out. What ended up happening with my 10 to 18 was that I never used it at 10 or 12, right? Because it looked way too fisheye because of the zoom elements. So that the look that I would like to get out of that lens always ended up being around 16 millimeters. So I was like, if I'm at 16 millimeters, I'm gonna use my Sigma, so there's no reason for me to have this lens. And that was the reason why I sold it. And I still feel that way until this lens came out. Because when this lens came out was when I said, okay, I'm gonna sell my 10 to 18 and I'll pick this one up, along the way. Well, so happens to be that a couple of years down the road is along the way, and now I was able to grab it for $229 off KEH. So too good of a deal to pass up, and it was the lens that I was looking for to accompany my new A6600. So now I'm very happy. I will be looking at other cameras in the future. I will be upgrading my A7R2 right here. This guy is, I'm gonna be moving on from it because I am now moving into the new Z-type battery with this bad boy. So eventually as well, I'm gonna be moving away from the A6100 because it's using the NPF 50 batteries, and now I'm going to the NP Z batteries on the bigger batter boys. So that is gonna be like pretty much it when it comes to my camera and lenses. The last thing that I'm going to share with you guys, that I'm also going to be taking my whoa, okay, all right, he's fine. I'm going to be taking my MacBook Air. So my MacBook Air is going to be like my all-in-one setup, and this is going to be my mobile unit. So when I am on the road, be sure that I'm going to still be doing the live stream. So Saturday night live streams, those aren't going to skip a beat, but this is going to be my minimalistic type of setup because I'm going to be carrying this computer, and to keep the load very light on the stream, I'm also going to be carrying with me this camera, which is the one that I'm using right here. This one that I'm pointing at, the ZV-1F. As you can see, this is connected via USB-C, and I believe it was last week, right, that I was having an issue with it. And having the issue with it, and I think the battery was being exhausted. I went to figure out why the battery would die during the live stream if it was connected. As we can see here, that says USB-C. So right now the USB-C is connecting this camera, also giving it trickle power. I'm dying today. Okay, so this camera is being trickle charged by the USB cable, and that same cable is feeding it the image that's being pumped out at 720p. Well, what was actually happening was that the cable that I decided to connect to it was probably like the first, and I really do mean the first, USB-C cable that I had ever purchased. And I used to do phone repairs, and that was the reason why I bought this cable, was because when USB-C was first introduced into phones, and I'm talking about Galaxy 9, I think it was. We're on like 24 or something. So Galaxy 9, I think, was when USB-C was first introduced into those phones. And I bought a USB-C cable, and it was a 10-foot cable, braided, and I've had it for so many years, and that it still works, but it doesn't have the pass-through capabilities of today's modern tech. And that was the problem, because even though it was giving the camera feed, it didn't have enough bandwidth to also charge the battery. And then when the battery was dying on the camera during a live stream, then it would start to bog down and the image started looking choppy. So I went and I bought a new, I think it's like 60 watt, like 40 megabit per second pass through USB-C cable, 10-foot, braided, but something new. So tips that we're always talking: first thing you do when when your setup is like giving you an issue, is check the cables. So the first thing I did was check the cables. I purchased better ones, newer ones from Amazon. They got here in a couple of days, and now that camera is giving a much better quality feed, and I've already tested it to the point where it doesn't even consume battery at all because I got the upgraded cable. After I finished testing it, right, I went and I turned it off to see if it would go into charging mode as soon as I finished, like the test. And what it did was it turned off. And then I was like, wait, it's not charging? And no, it was not charging because it was already completely charged, meaning this cable now has enough pass through to give it all the power that it needs so that it maintains itself completely charged, and at the same time give the image at its highest quality capacity at 720, even though it's limited to that with that cable. Meaning that now the MacBook Air and this little setup with the appropriate cable is going to be more than enough for me to be able to do live streaming with Ecamm on the road. Now, here's an asterisk. If you're listening to me say that I'm going to use a MacBook Air for my live stream, it's not recommended. It's an M1 machine, and it's not the best when it comes to trying to produce a live stream like the one that you're seeing right now. Like right now, we have a variety of different cameras, right? We have different angles. And if you were to try to do something like this with multiple screens, an overhead shot, as you can see, a Rodecaster Pro, Stream Deck, and you got all of these things connected, and you're trying to get them all working through a hub that's connected through the two USB, C ports on the MacBook Air, and expect it to do it all flawlessly, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that it's not. The reason why I chose is because I'm going minimalistic, and that aspect is just one cable going from the computer to this, the easiest and the smallest of my cameras, so that I am able to still bring a higher quality than 720 webcam kind of live stream. But I also want to produce good audio, and I'm not going to be carrying my Rodecaster Pro. And last year I made an entire box with my Mac Mini and like my Zoom PodTrack P4 and this whole thing, and even though it was able to do what I needed it to do, at the same time it was a lot more than I wanted to carry. So I'm trying to keep everything within that bag. So to do so is why I also grabbed these. And these are my Rode Wireless Go 2s. You can see I got the little, mic froze on top of them. And I got them in this newer case, which is powered. If I hit the button right. See? Now the power case will actually power up and charge up all of the units simultaneously, which is super cool. But it also works as a battery bank. So if I needed to charge up, like my Insta360, X3, and I wanted to get the most battery life out of it, I'm able to USB-C to it and transfer the juice from the box to the camera because that's where I need it most. Um, yeah, and you can do that for your phone. So it basically works as a battery bank at the same time as protecting your microphones and charging them or keeping them charged if necessary. So awesome little setup. And because this is a Rode unit, you're able to connect that to the same MacBook Pro, and via USB-C, this becomes my audio setup. So now this is going to be the microphones that I carry, and I know that I'm going to get high quality audio, not to the level of an SM7B, but high quality audio through the Rode setup, and it being completely convenient, being compact and this small. I also do have a backup, right? You have a backup to the backups, right? And the backup audio setup that I have, if for whatever reason this is on the fritz or goes missing whatsoever, is the Rode AI Micro. Here, let me pull it out so I could show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is the pouch that comes for the Rode Wireless Go 2s. Yeah, so many names. Anyways, I'm getting them right. Rode Wireless Go 2s, right? Boom. And there's the pouch. What I did is I just put all of the cables that correspond to that system and to that unit in there, and instead of carrying the microphones themselves. So this makes it a lot easier, and within it is the AI Micro that I'm talking about. So this is the Rode AI Micro. As you can see, it has two little microphone inlets or like ports right there, showing 1 and 2, and the headphone, and a USB-C connection on the top. This is a complete interface. So you can connect two microphones and have the audio out so that you can monitor, hear exactly what's going on. And as we always say, make sure you're using wireless, wired headphones instead of wireless. You don't really want to use, AirPods. So this will allow me to take a lavalier microphone, or maybe even like my oh my god, I'm running a blank on that one. Rode Video Micro. Listen to that, because that's one of the oldest ones. So the old, shotgun microphone that Rode has sold for so many years, I still have it. That's called the Rode Wireless. Did I say it right? I'm running a blank. That's the Rode Wireless Micro. Video Micro, not wireless, because it has a wire. Listen, is the Rode Video Micro, and that microphone I could easily plug in here. That's also, very convenient. So whether it's TRS or TRRS, that's the convenience of this little get up here, because you're able to connect a physical microphone, whether it's one designed for a cell phone or one designed for a camera phone, and this one will actually accept both and understand what you're dealing with and let the microphone work. So you don't need any additional adapters, which is super convenient about this Rode AI Micro. So this is like a little like game changer, especially if you really want to go extreme minimalistic. You wouldn't even, carry something like this around. You would connect this to, the lightweight laptop, and then maybe a lightweight camera like that, and you're good to go with, exemplary level audio and video, very and extremely compact. Yep. So these are the lavaliers that I picked up years ago from Amazon. Now, straight into the cameras, they never worked out really well, but that was before I really understood that the preamps and the cameras really just suck. So I got this Slint professional lavalier microphone. Like, I believe they're like $20 or $30. It came with 2 complete sets. So these are, available on Amazon. And like I mentioned before, I will do my best to put the links in there. But this is something that could be used with the AI micro, and that's why I'm carrying this as well, just in case, as the backup to the backup. Now, I did mention the one thing that I carried this no-brainer kind of pancake lens, and the reason why is because even though my main camera is my A60 600, my vlogging and live streaming camera is going to be the ZV-1F that I have as my overhead cam. But I am going to bring a backup photography only camera, which is my most compact and most convenient, and I talk about it a lot. Some of you might know, which is going to be my Sony NEX6. Now, this has an old school 16.3 megapixel CMOS sensor on it, and it's one that was made from Sony and sold to Fuji on a lot of their 16 megapixel cameras, including the one that's sitting right on my shelf next to Bruce right there. Okay, and that is you can't see it, it's a blur, but I'm trying to remember the name. This is the Fujifilm X-T1, and that has the same exact sensor because Sony sold it to Fuji. But you get similar type images, right? The rendering off of this small little compact camera that's even smaller than the small Fuji X-T1. So if I were to compare this to my A60 600, right? Look at how it is completely minuscule. And the one thing that you kind of don't see from there, which I'll show you here, is the top view. How thick this guy is, even the body itself, and how thin this guy is. Now, if you're seeing a piece of tape on the camera, you're seeing correct. But that's a trick that I'm going to talk about in a bit, because it's one of the features that I absolutely love, which is why I'm taking this as a backup to the backup. All right, so let me put that one back down. Reason number one is that this is also a Sony E-mount. So all the lenses that I was talking about here fit onto this camera without issue, including the zoom lens if I want to take that far reaching out. And this zoom lens also has optical stabilization, so I can get a the limitations on it, I can bypass it with a slower shutter speed, knowing that this has the OSS in it. But this little guy is going to be for this 20 millimeter. And I absolutely love this setup. This is my little thin pancake setup, is very like discreet. And one of my favorite features about photography, in cameras, is a good viewfinder, which is why I cannot emphasize to you enough why I keep going back to this camera. On top of that, I like the images that you're getting, as the final result. This has the same 2.36 million dot viewfinder that you would find on this guy right here. So the A6100 has a 900,000 dot, right, like viewfinder, and you could actually tell the difference. There's some people say like, I can't tell the difference. I always could, and I would use the A6100 because it has a lot of amazing features. But even this camera here, so going to this guy right here, the the A7R2, that has an amazing viewfinder because it's the R series, and I forgot the specs on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's of the same 2.3 million dot, especially with the age of that camera and the availability of the viewfinder's capabilities. So this camera with this little setup, it is kind of like one of my favorites, just extremely lightweight, and I'm able to just like carry it anywhere, and so thin. And another feature of this camera is that it's also a magnesium alloy body. So I'm gonna go to the overhead shot to see if I can really show you, but let me see. This guy is all scratched up. Like, you see the missing paint, and the missing paint right there because of how many, you know, fingers have been just like rubbing on it for years, right? And all the touch points, what you see underneath it is not black, it's gray because it's a full metal body, magnesium alloy. And I can honestly tell you, I accidentally dropped the hell out of this camera one time and was super surprised that it just, without a problem, just kept on ticking. Now, unfortunately, it does have a crack on the LCD, but that wasn't because I dropped it. That was how I bought it. This camera came from a neglected home, but ever since I got my hands on it, I've been putting extremely good use to it, and this is kind of like my little secret weapon. So instead of always having to take out my fancier type cameras, this one is very discreet. And the last thing that I'm taking with me, which is why this one is the backup to the backups, is the reason why it has a piece of tape on there, is that this has flash. Oh, now flash photography is great when you know how to utilize it, but a lot of these cameras, and a lot of cameras actually, would only put on APS-C type bodies let me get this out, front facing flash systems. So if I were to click the little button to take out the flash on this camera, it has an entire mechanism where it will open up and face forward, right? And it will face directly at what you're shooting at. And if you were to snap a picture in that way, you will get an image that looks not the best. Let me just say, it looks like you took the photo with a with a disposable camera. That, like, let's be real, it looks like, you know, you just got one of these cheap little disposable cameras and you click the flash and the flash is always facing forward. And the reason why is because you can notice that type of photography, that front facing flash, because the subjects are like perfectly lit, but yet everything else in the shot is completely underexposed. It's just dark and shadow. So you just see two people like this hovering, like within, you know, like holding each other. Somebody's taking a picture and be like, I'm a portrait photographer, and they're using front facing flash. And I'm like, oh, this is the worst thing you can do as a photographer, in my opinion. So one of the ways that you would use flash correctly is to actually shoot towards the ceiling, or, you know, in a particular direction where the light will be able to bounce, create more of a softer light up more of the ambiance, and then you'll have a better exposed shot and everyone will be lit correctly. I've been talking so much, I'm dry as hell. Okay. So that's where the piece of tape on this NEX comes into play. So once again, we're going to the top down shot. Okay. And right here, this is my little flash button. And as soon as I click it, we'll see that my flash starts to try to open, right? And it kind of gets stuck there because it's being held down by tape. But just with that, I'm able to just flick it open. And that flick open and the piece of tape properly puts my flash, instead of facing forward, facing up. And this little setup right here, without me having to touch another thing, becomes such an amazing portrait photography setup anywhere, because I'm taking the elements that it has, and none of my other cameras have a built-in flash. That's why this is a backup to the backup. And with this little trick of just putting a piece of tape there, it allows the flash to actually shoot up instead of forward, bouncing off of ceilings instead of foreheads, right? Because that's exactly what you're trying not to do. So if you want it to bounce off the side, then you just move your camera to the appropriate side, and you have the light shooting and bouncing off of the direction that you want. So this is like my little hidden feature, which is just a piece of tape over this flash, because if not, then you see this entire like, I guess it's just contraption, right, is designed to actually make it a front facing flash, and my little piece of tape denies it from moving. And that's my little hack slash tip. So if you have the ability, and you were to have, like, maybe not this camera, but any type of camera that has front facing flash, I will highly recommend you think or look for a way, if you're going to use the built-in flash, to redirect it, to send it somewhere instead of directly to, you know, your desired subject. All right. And that's why this little kit is coming with me. So my entire setup is A6600, NEX6, and the Sony ZV-1F. I actually think I'm going to be doing the majority of, like, you know, vlogging, right? You know, and recording of that aspect on two cameras, which is going to be the ZV-1F, because, to be honest, it has to do with compact, lightweight, easy to use. So the ZV-1F and this guy, because this is just like, I have plans for this guy. This, let's just say that I'm gonna put a lot of things to test when it comes to how I'm able to use this to just capture random and video basically at all times. I'm really excited for this piece of kit. Yeah. And now, actually, let me go back. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of this together real quick. So that I can give you one last top view of my lenses and how compact they are. And I'm putting all the cases back together so that we can see. These are it. So these two, this is my Rokinon and my 20 millimeter, right? So 12, 20 millimeter basically equate to the same height as my zoom lens. So those two just hang out there. And then my 55 millimeter and my 30 millimeter also equate to the same size, and they just hang out there. So basically, the size of 4 lenses, I'm going to be carrying around 5, and have basically all of my primes from 12 to 55 millimeter, and a 55 to 210 in the zoom range, anything beyond that. So this is gonna be like my walk around setup, and that excludes the 360 camera and also the ZV-1F, which, if you haven't seen, I made a video about the 5 accessories, or 5 must-have accessories for the ZV-1F, and one of them being a wide angle lens adapter. So that, with a, what's it called, a step up ring? Yeah, so a step up ring from 40 point, what is it? I forgot what size it is, but it should be written here. Yeah, 40.5 to a 52 millimeter. That's the step up ring that I have there, and that fits snugly right on top of this, increasing the field of view then some. So lightweight. This is an add-on, but you know what? I forgot to mention this as a lens because this is kind of part of my ZV-1F. So I kind of just threw it in there as like, if I'm carrying my ZV-1F, this is part of that camera. It's like already like inherently a part of that camera. So that's why I didn't mention it, but this is an additional lens to get even wider field of view from the ZV-1F, and that's how I'm going to be rocking that. And yeah, but if you want to see exactly how that kit is set up, I have it in that video, the 5 must-have accessories for the ZV-1F. And yeah, good audio. The last thing is that I did mention that the case, the newer case for the microphones is a power bank, but I'm also carrying a 100-watt power bank as well. This is a 26,800 milliamp. I believe this is the biggest size that you can carry on a plane. That's why they make it to that, specification. I don't know if the rules have changed because I think I've seen bigger ones now. But it could be that those aren't allowed on a plane. So I'm exactly not sure. This one is like available to, that you can put it in your carry-on luggage, and it has quite a lot of juice. Now, the Insta360 stickers, because I majorly bought it for that camera with a USB-C cable connected to it. That camera basically doesn't die, so I'm able to just run a cable to it while I'll be recording and driving, knowing that that camera will do as much recording as I want. Another thing that I really didn't get into, but is also part of the tech that I'm going to be carrying with me, is storage, right? So SSDs. I bought a 2 terabyte SanDisk, USB-C high-speed SSD, and I bought that just to do my data dumps. So what is a data dump? Well, I'm glad you asked. Data dump is going to be that while I'm traveling, right, through the days and through the states as I'm making my trek up to Amesbury, I'm going to be dropping all of the data from all of the cameras onto that hard drive every night. So when I get to the hotel and it's going to be, lights out, before I go to sleep, I'm going to take all the memory cards out, drop all the information into that SSD, and then start all over for the next day and make sure that there's no, residual data. This way I won't run across any of the issues of like not having enough data for the day, because I'm preemptively thinking about how I'm going to manage it. I already have the hard drive set out so that at the end of every day, all the cameras and all memory cards are going to be put into there and then wiped clean, put into the cameras that they correspond to, ready for the next day, and batteries will then be charged accordingly. So it's just going to be systematic to make sure that I maximize and do the most that I can with the equipment that I'm taking. Another piece of kit, which is kind of unspoken, but is going to be essential to making this as mobile as possible and allow me to capture as much as possible, is the unspoken hero. Bam! The iPhone. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I have more than one iPhone, right? And my main phone, the one that has service and everything, that's my iPhone 11 Pro Max. Now, I'm due for an upgrade, and I might be getting one soon. But what I also have is an iPhone 11 Pro that's basically like completely empty. Now, this is just an extension of a camera so that I'm able to record in those places where maybe all other cameras are off-putting, but that they'll allow a phone and you can be very incognito. This is where this is going to come into play. Another thing is that I also have a a a phone mount. This one's a Ulanzi ST03, and the reason why I chose this one is because it is mechanical, and you can really tighten down and like hunker this guy down to your setup, like almost like a small rig. So I'm able to put the phone in there, lock it down, and that guy ain't going nowhere, right? So now that it's like all nice and tight, I'm able to take my makeshift vlogging pod, and this is also a video that I made on my channel, which is like the easiest travel tripod, which is basically an articulating arm with a little mini tripod that turns into a handle. And now you're able to utilize this as a vlogging setup, record yourself, record anything, and have another camera. So this one is 256 gigs, and because I'm not utilizing it for just basically anything else except as a video camera, I'm making sure that all of that memory is available for the video and the video aspect. So I believe I recorded like 128 gigs. Yeah, about half of the capacity of footage last year on this phone this way. So, you know, I have that much data that I was able to extract from this phone, and right now I'm in the process of cleaning this out to have it empty and ready for this next trip. And that's it. There are even more accessories, of course, and I could be talking about them all night, right? Like the extended pole for the Insta360. I'll go to this camera over here, not that one, this one, right? Because what I did was the magnet. I'm going to show you the magnet is holding up my light, which is so dope. That's a whole nother thing. But that magnet is designed to, you know, stick onto cars, and you're able to mount a camera onto it. Right now, the mount and everything is holding my light, which is illuminating my face. So my new Ulanzi 40 watt LT028 light is being held onto my setup here with, you know, the assistance of magnets. Pretty cool, right? Makes it very convenient for when I want to move it around. Extremely convenient. Right? So there are quite a few, you know, additional pieces of, you know, kit. So let me speak to the microphone. Additional pieces of kit that I'm gonna be taking with me to aid in this. But as far as lenses and the actual equipment goes, that's, I think, overkill, right? But I just can't wait to be able to have all the options to record in every way possible. Because an idea that I have is Navi Cam, right? Those of you who are, you know, fans of Legend of Zelda might have heard of Navi from the Ocarina of Time installation of the games. And Navi would always be a fairy that was kind of like your point of view, but also giving you advice, kind of hovering over your shoulder, right? Seeing your every move. And that's what I'm going to do with that stick in the Insta360, that even though I'm going to be recording, you know, on the ZV-1F, taking photos with my A6600, I'm also going to have like a time lapse of Navi, like a pole coming off of like my backpack or something like that, you know, just recording instances at all times. So I have quite a few ideas. Which one I'm gonna implement really depends on, you know, is really gonna depend on what we're doing, right? If it calls for it. Because if we're not walking around, you know, just depends on what we're actually doing and what event we're doing. But I'm really excited for this, so I'm excited to document it as best I can. So now we're gonna go back to the comments. Thank you all for listening to my soliloquy. I'm gonna get some water and go back to it. Excuse me. Wow, a lot came through. Kevin says, I really enjoyed my Tamron f2.8 28 to 75 this afternoon. This it was big but worked nicely. No, I actually really like that lens. When I had my 24 to 70 f4 last year, Doc said, hey, do you want to try my 28 to 75 Tamron? And I was like, sure. And man, I was just so pleasantly surprised with that lens that I ended up using it for like the entire week. One of the reasons is its weight. Now, it is a lot lighter than what you would think. Now, size, it's big because it's a full frame at 2.8. But there's some people who don't know that Sony actually owns part of Tamron. Like they bought shares within the company, and I think that part of it had to do with them allowing them to actually have a better insight to the way the autofocus works. And I could honestly tell you, Tamrons are like baby G lenses. It's almost like, you know, like we can get into this whole thing of Samsung versus Vizio and things like that, like, you know, where they're using a lot of the same components but they just tweak or change one thing. The fact that, you know what, I was talking to Marine X about this. Kevin, that lens does not have OSS in it, right? Or tell me if it does. Let me know if the 2.8 actually has optical stabilization built into it, or if that's just a steady shot that's built into the Sony cameras themselves. If you can, brother. Gretchen says, you have more willpower than me. I have a hard time leaving lenses behind. Oh, I'm leaving so many lenses behind. The one that's gonna hurt me the most, honestly, is the Sigma. Right? I'm still like, oh, should I? But it is heavier than my 55, right? And bigger. It's bigger and heavier than this one, and this one's a full frame lens. So it is like a full frame lens equivalent, and I know I have all my bases covered because the the 12 millimeter f2, my new rocking on, it actually is definitely wide enough. The one thing that I mentioned before is that it's subject to lens flares, and it is. Like, I noticed just using it here, testing it out within the studio, and a little light coming from the outside, and like the majority of the image was washed out, and I was like, wow, okay, just conscious of it. But with a variable ND, I should be okay. All right, images. Kevin, okay, so he's saying something to Gretchen here. Says, I had 2 camera bags running for video, 4 lenses left in the bag. I wasn't sure. Well, you see, that's also a little different, right? Like if you're doing a gig, then you bring the backups to the backups to the backups, right? And that's, you getting paid or something of that sort. You want to have all your bases covered. So right there. But to give you an example, guys, just to give you an example, like this lens here, I brought even this lens with me to Amesbury last year. So we're talking about a vintage Canon Quantaray 19 to 35 that only works with an adapter. So I brought the adapter, I brought the lenses, I brought everything. And the reason why I mention it is because it ended up saving the day. This lens ended up saving a lot of the photo shoot that we did last year, because the photographer that was doing the photography side of it. I was there doing the video. The photographer was a Canon shooter, and he didn't have the appropriate lens. And then I said, I have this Canon lens that's for photography only. Will this work? He popped it on his camera, and away we went. So that lens right there ended up saving the day. But that's gonna stay. Like, I'm not carrying Metabones adapters, and I'm not carrying like vintage lenses and all that stuff. Like, I brought pretty much everything last year, and I'm so glad that I'm taking a different approach, because even though I have 5 lenses in front of me here, they're APS-C lenses. Well, one of them is full frame, but still practically APS-C lenses or equivalent in that size. So I'm not going that overboard and taking a lot less weight. Randy's in the house saying, hello everyone. Has been to the Alamo and took 16mm 28 and a 50mm lens. They're not expensive, small and compact or pancake. Beautiful day, but hot. That's super cool. That's a great set of lenses right there. And when you're dealing with primes, man, you're gonna get great shots. Yep, I agree with that, Kevin. Says, I'm gonna love that lens. I got one in the bag. I was thinking of that one, but that's the full frame, right? The AF is the full frame 24 autofocus, right? I had been looking at that one, but also the other thing was that I wasn't looking to get a full frame lens, right? That might be coming in the future, but that's when I decide to upgrade into my new R series. Because I think I've already decided I'm gonna get a new R camera. Which one? We'll see. If I get a really good deal on a Mark IV, I might pull the trigger on that instead of going for the 5. But they're all pretty expensive. And I digress, because that's gonna happen well after Apple Vision. So, hey, Jeremy's in the house saying what's up to the fam. Okay, so Gretchen says, I sold 2 cameras, 3 lenses, and bought 4 lenses and a tripod through KEH. Nice. And you sold the cameras through KEH too? Because that's the whole thing. Like, I don't know if they give the best prices on it, like when they're buying it back. Because I usually sell mine through Marketplace and stuff like that. I get the most bang for the buck. Okay. Kevin says, I had a similar cable situation with my old MacBook Pro. Somehow ended up with the power only USB-C cable and didn't realize it until way after the fact. I can imagine, man. But mine was just like, it's an old cable. Like, it just doesn't meet up to today's standards. So I was like, you know what? Let me just give this a shot, knowing that the cables have improved. And there's a lot more pass through them, and without a doubt, I'm looking at it right now, it's still completely charged, no problem whatsoever, and giving a much more stable image than the choppiness that we were dealing with like either last week or the week before. Randy says, on my M1 MacBook Air, I said, I'm connected 7 different cameras using Ecamm Live Pro. Minimalistic is the webcam and one camera that can be used to take videos with pics while on the trip. That is crazy. So he said the M1 MacBook Air, and he put 7 different cameras onto it. Now, you see, Randy's saying that he did it. I still wouldn't recommend it. Just depending on what you're doing exactly, you could be just lagging it out because the system is not designed for it and is designed to thermal throttle. Emil, he says, K, well, welcome. I believe this is the first time I see you here. Welcome to the Camera Junkie live stream. Jeremy has a question, says, tripod for your road rig. My tripod for the tabletop is this, the articulating arm. Now, not exactly on this setup, because this little handheld Ulanzi tripod I just got with the light. That's not the one that I'll be using. The one that I will be using is this one that I've been using for years already, which is a DJI one. This one came with one of the gimbals, and I sold the gimbal, but I kept the mini tripod because I wanted it. It was the Osmo 3 was, I think, the one that I bought. And I put a UT bit, like ball head, on top of it, so that I have complete, flexibility if I want to use like my A6600. But at the same time, I would just be connecting an articulating arm like this, putting it on the same table that I will have my laptop, and just have the camera slightly above my laptop screen facing at me, connected to it using this. That's it. And this is plenty height to be higher than my laptop screen. And that's it. Articulating arm. That's my tripod. Because I'm keeping it like small. I have like my higher size tripods, and I was thinking about purchasing one of those travel ones, like, the Peak Design, right? Those carbon fiber small ones that look like the size of a water bottle. Just haven't gotten around to it, and for my use case right now, that's gonna be, what I'm gonna carry. Maybe I pick up one of those tripods in B&H while I'm in New York. See, I gotta leave some holes. I gotta leave some holes in my kit so that I can go and find something new and replace the stuff that's in it. That's part of the game. It's part of the game. Albert's in the house. Wow, that's a nice mic. I've been the radar for one. Hello. Which one? The Wireless Go 2s? Now, if you're looking at the Rode Wireless Go 2s as the microphone, then I will tell you, buy the Pros. They're absolutely worth it. They do everything that these do and more, and they come with all the accessories that I've been putting together piece by piece, right? So the Rode Wireless Go Pro are the ones that are soon to be released or just released. They cost $400 comparative to $300, but they also come with 2 lavalier mics, extra microphones. They come with a charging case similar to this one, which was an additional add-on that I had to buy. I believe I got a good price, but I still think I paid $35 for this, battery bank. And theirs, knowing that this exists, they made theirs a battery bank as well. That one has an additional aspect that if you were to connect the USB-C cable to the case itself, right, into the computer, not only is it going to charge, it's also going to communicate so that you can import or export and do all of the, the downloading of the files through one cable and the case, which unfortunately the newer one does not do. Right, this is just a charging case and battery bank. So there are nuances to that. It comes with another little case so that it has all of the extra cables, which basically is what I did with this, right? So it's got 2 little mirror cases. One of them is charging, allows you to connect through your computer, all in one little system. Plus it gives you a little pouch for all of your additional cables. It comes with the magnets so that you can lavalier with the magnets to it. If I want to buy the magnets for my kit, that's an extra $20. So I already spent $300. Then you add another $20, another $35 for this case. Then you add 2 additional lavalier microphones, and if they're Rode branded, right there you're over $400. right? Just with that, and you're getting all the additional stuff all in one kit, plus 32-bit float with the latest and greatest where their software capabilities. I would definitely tell you, if you like these, even though they're great, I already bought these, don't buy these. Buy the newer ones, the Rode Wireless Go Pros, and those are, it's funny because that name just sounds like something that exists already, right? Go Pros. Anyways, I digress. Hey, Ernesto's here. Says, nice to be able to catch one live, and we appreciate having you here. Kevin says, neglected camera rescuer and care provider. Yeah, dude. Neglected home. I saved it, you know? And I really like this camera because it's so compact. Like, you see how thin it is? But let me even show you, when you pull out like the lens, the thinness of this little chunk, the little sliver, right? Look at how thin that is. From the mount to, it's just nuts, because part of this thickness here, which is super thin, is LCD. So if you remove that LCD, look at how thin the actual camera is mind-boggling. Plus, you know, traditional photographer screen stuff that I like, right? The one bad thing on that camera is its battery life. And the thing that I also know that, Aiden, what are you doing? Leave that alone. Thank you. Okay. The one thing that will cause to drain the battery the most on any electronics, and that includes phones or anything like that, is the LCD screen. So the longer your LCD screen is like lit up and brightening up your room and your face, it's going to be consuming the most amount of energy at that point. So one trick that I use for this guy to save battery life is I turn off the rear LCD. So the same sensor that's here, right, that is designed to capture the light, and as soon as you were to put your eye to it, it will turn off the back LCD and then turn on the viewfinder. What I do is that I turn off the LCD completely. So even though the camera's on and ready to be used, it's not displaying anything, so it's conserving battery. And the viewfinder is the only thing that's enabled, but it's also turned off because it's sensing that there's no eyeball next to it, so it's not displaying anything. So the camera is active and working, ready to take photos. Even if I don't have like my face in front of it, it will not be displaying anything. And as soon as I decide to put my eye to it, it recognizes that my eye's on there. It will then turn on the viewfinder, and I'm able to see what the camera is seeing to take the photography, to take the shot, right? To take the photo. And that's it. And that's one trick that I use to maximize the battery life on this older camera, because that was like its biggest weakness. Like, besides that, 2.3 million dot viewfinder, 16 megapixel, small compact camera that takes amazing images. This is a powerhouse, right? It even does video, right? The one thing that this straight up does not have whatsoever is a mic input, right? It doesn't have good audio. But what it does have is that it has audio. So you're able to record onto your Rode wireless microphones and then synchronize the good audio from your microphone onto this video, and you're good to go. Ways to work around it. You know, I mentioned this before, but I actually shot one of my videos on my YouTube channel, and I don't remember which one it is, so I would have to go back and see it, like go look for it. And I shot the entire video in 1080p in this camera. Not so much as a, did you use a different camera? It looks different. Just nothing whatsoever. Says you will have an image full of harsh shadows. I think we were just talking about the, that stuff. Thank you, Paul, for sharing the link. David Harvey Official says, I'm curious, is that a bumper or bracket attached to the front of your mouse? That's actually both, right? It is a bumper bracket. So this is something that I made myself. It's made out of foam core, as you can see. I made it in the shape and I hot glued it to the front of my mouse. And it is there as a protector, because what happens with me is that I use my mouse, and as I have other items, like let's say my monster can, I would be doing something and the front lip of it, just the front little lip of it, would click, and I would start like left clicking and right clicking just because it was stuck on there. And if I was trying to move to something else, it would bump it out. So now with that bumper, I'm able to move items with my mouse out of the way so that I can utilize it without it clicking on anything accidentally. So that's something that I made myself for myself because of the way that I use my mouse. I kind of forget that I do things like that. That's so funny. But great question. Okay, so Kevin did answer. Thank you, sir. He says, no, I don't believe it has OSS. So that means that 20... I need to speak to Marine X, because he was looking for a alternative to basically the 16-35 f4 Sony lens, the Zeiss. And that's also one of the reasons why I love the 24-70, is because even though it's an f4, it has optical stabilization. That paired with the steady shot in my A7 IV, we can give such amazing results. And it's the same with the A6600 that has the steady shot. So the OSS lenses paired with the steady shot, man, they give just such great B-roll. Kevin says, I got an APS-C rocking on 24mm. It's much smaller and more plasticky than the 12mm. Keep an eye on Amazon and can be found new for under $200 sometimes. Sam Yang sometimes rocking on. Oh, it didn't pop up. I was just reading the whole thing. Okay, so yeah, that's a great thing. So it's a 24mm APS-C. The one that I had seen was a 24mm full frame lens, which is also autofocus from Rockinon. And that one is the one that's got me interested, because that could be a good alternative, right? Like the lens that I know I love, but I'm steering clear of because of the price point. I haven't found a really good deal on it, but I know it's in my future, is the G Master 24mm. I absolutely love that focal length, love Sony, and I've denied myself from testing out that lens because, how can I put this? It's better that I don't know how good it is yet, so that I don't know what I'm missing, right? Because I don't know what I'm missing, I have no urge for it. But I know that as soon as I use that, G Master 24mm, there's no turning back on any other 24mm. So that's why I've held off until I know that I'm going to pull the trigger. It says it is an f2.8, still nice for a tiny lens. Oh, I'm definitely going to check it out. But that's the whole thing. Like, that's something that's been on my radar. Like the 12mm for APS-C from when I had my A6000, that Rockinon was a manual lens. And manual would be great if I was doing, how could I say? Thank you. The 12mm, even manual, would have been great if I was doing real estate videography, right? To get like an extreme wide angle, right? And that in the cinema type, you don't need focus to be breathing or anything like that. You use a gimbal, different things like that. But it was only till they came out with the autofocus that I was like really like, oh, that's the lens right there. So I can't wait. I just got it this week. I got it on the 7th, so I've had it for 2 days. I ordered it, I believe, on the 1st or the 2nd. So it was roughly a week from when I ordered the lens to me receiving it at the house. Experience so far. And one thing that I can say is that the quality, like, it's not in rough shape. This thing is brand new. The only thing that's missing is pretty much the box that it came with and the paperwork. But besides that, I haven't found a scratch on it and nothing on the optics. So it's 100%. Yep, Kevin agrees with me. He says, yes, the Rode Wireless Go Pros 2 are like 1000% worth the difference. Exactly. Because it's just like, I know that I spent more than $400 to get this kit to wait, and I don't have the Rode branded, like lavalier microphones. I don't have like, and to have all that one kit plus like the little magnets, like the whole thing, and the charging case. And the charging case, they really get you with the, at least they did to me, right? Like, you can just plug one cable from the case to your computer and you can access all the files from both of the microphones. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty dope. That's pretty cool right there, especially when we're all limited on USB-C slots. Randy says, my good friend's son is blind. He has his LCD screen off and his cell phone, and he has memorized all of the icons, apps, and he types faster than I can think. Wow, that is crazy. Wow, that's so cool, man. I remember, and this is just similar to that because that's extraordinary. But when I had the cell phone repair shop, I remember somebody came in to repair their iPhone. And when they came to pick up the repair, I was speaking to the person about the repair. They paid for it. They were on their phone. And I kid you not, they were like this on their phone and they were looking at me. And they were just like this. That's amazing. Okay, so you did that to my phone, and their thumbs are on fire. I can see like smoking glass, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm just typing. And she didn't even have to, like, the same way, didn't even have to look at the phone. She just knew where the keys were, and she was just going at it, listening to me while having a completely different text conversation. I was like, all right, I'm done. I was like, I've never seen anything like that. Says, now you have me rethinking what I'm bringing to camp. Maybe the infrared RP small light, but the color filter, and just shoot everyone in infrared and make us all zombies. That'll be interesting. That would be really cool. But the RP with the infrared is just amazing at night. Right? That at night it's like shooting during the day. Oh. And that's the whole thing. You could always invert colors and fix it in post, But that look is so dope. It's so sharp. It's so sharp. It's just mind boggles. Okay, Randy says, I see another quick tip video coming from Lewis. Which one? Which one should I make a video, or should I just clip it from what I've said here? Oh my God. Totally lost track of time. I can't believe I'm 40 minutes over the hour. Oh my God. You guys are amazing. You guys are still hanging out here with me. Okay, let's get through these comments here. It says, plus the 32-bit flow in the time code. Yes, absolutely. Like, just a 32-bit flow, I'm like, oh, that's so dope, because the way that I've set up mine is with the pad, the -30 and the -20, so I'm able to keep it like this close to my mouth and not have it distort, right? And like have it like a microphone, like a traditional dynamic. Says my friend's son is talented. He can play different musical instruments. That's awesome. Says I misspoke. It's full frame, not APS-C. Oh, okay, so it is a full frame, the 24 millimeter. Okay, cool, cool. So then we're probably talking about the same one. Exactly. It's not the fastest. It's the 2.8, but definitely like a good lens. So that's one that's definitely been on my radar. Samyang and Rockinon is a company that's always been, it's always caught my eye. Gretchen is going to create creator camp zombies. It's going to be cool, especially, it's October. So it'll definitely fit in with the Halloween vibe. Says, don't forget City to Go. Thank you, because I had it and I forgot it. Okay. The mouse guard video. You see, like, that's something that even though I do, I'll tell you, Randy, I won't be making a video on that. For one reason, and this is the whole thing. I love photography and my channel is based around photography. The last thing that I would want to do is make a video about a foam core accessory to a mouse and it become like what my channel is known for, right? It would be unfortunate, but I would run that risk if I make that video. So that would be a video that I would make for my members only and probably put it in the Discord, and that's what you find it. BZ is in the house. How you doing, Tom? Thanks for stopping by. We're just finishing things up here, even though I ran extremely late. You are just in time for this week's Cities Gall, channels that I think you should go and watch. And you were on this list once. And this week's Cities Gall is none other than Mr. Ted Forbes from the channel The Art of Photography. Now, if you're not familiar with Ted, let me be the one to introduce you to this brilliant man. He's also a Sony shooter, but of choice. One way or another, he is what you would consider a camera junkie as well, because he shoots Leica, he shoots Sony, he shoots whatever he wants. And he's an amazing creator. Now, he's a big-time photographer, been in this YouTube space, sharing his knowledge of photography for a long time, and he's got a laundry list of videos teaching, talking about gear, so on and so forth. He's got a really mellow style of making videos, and I absolutely love the information that he shares on photography. Ted is just the dude, man. He's like super laid back, super cool. And if you haven't heard of him before, then let me be the one to introduce you to Ted from the channel The Art of Photography. This week's Cities Gall, channels that I think you should go and watch. And that is it. We've done it. We've completed another successful live stream. This has been episode 145. You heard that correct. That is 145 consecutive weeks of the Camera Junkie live stream without skipping a beat. And I thank you all, as always, for hanging out here with me. An hour and 45 minutes. This is bringing me back to the days where I had no control and would lose track of time and we'd go off for 3 hours. But it's always awesome to have such an amazing crew hanging out here with me while I do this. So as I always tell you guys, you are the reason what makes this the best part of my every week, and I don't see the future without a Camera Junkie live stream happening every Saturday night. So as always, take care of yourselves and each other. And if you haven't gotten the drift already, we're going to be doing this all over again next week, same time, same place. And I can't wait to see all of your smiling faces as you join me here for episode 146 and week 146 of the Camera Junkie live stream. So take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you next time. Talk to you.